is to show how prepared we are for an impending examination. So it is just a dry test, and the first question says that simplify 0.00075 times 0.00032 all over 0.00016 times 0.0025 and leave your answer in standard form. Second question says, can you purchase 2 chairs and a table at 7 Ghana cedis? Subtracting the price of a chair from that of a table results 1 Ghana cedi. What is the cost of each chair and each table? The third question says that the perimeter of a triangle of side length 7 square root of 162 units, 5 square root of 192 units, and x units is 46 square root of 3 plus 63 square root of 2 units. Find the value of x. Okay, so from the given questions, let's try starting from the question number 1. So in solving question number 1, let us look at the question well. Simplify 0.00075 times 0.00032 all over 0.00016 times 0.0025. So let us write it down. Solution. We have 1. The question is 0.00075 times 0.00032 all over 0.00016 times 0.00025. Okay, now to simplify this and leave our answer in standard form, we will try to write each of the figures in standard form, but not really in standard form. According to standard form, right after the first significant figure there should be a decimal point. So looking at 0.00075, the first significant figure is 7, and after the 7 there should be a decimal point before 5. But I'm not really going to do it like that, but I'm going to apply the standard form approach. So I can write this 75. Why am I writing a 75? When I look at the question, it is crystal clear that 25 can simplify the 75, and also the 16 is a factor of what? 32. So when I write it in this format, I can easily do some simplification. So 75 times 10 raised to the power. So looking at this the decimal point over here, right, on the first figure, if I move this decimal point behind the 5, it means I'm going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it is going to be 5, 10 raised to the power 5. But because I'm moving the decimal point backwards, I'm going to introduce a negative sign, right? So that is for the first figure. Then times the 0.00032. I'm going to write that one to as 32 times 10 raised to the power. So the decimal point over here I'm going to move this decimal point behind the 2. So how many times am I going to move for this, or move this decimal point for it to come behind the 2? So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to move 5 times. But since we are moving backwards, it is also going to be negative. Okay, now let us come to the denominator. Denominator, I'm going to write 1/6 times 10 raised to the power. So how many times can we move this decimal point for it to come behind the 6? Let's check. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That one is 5 times. And because we are moving backwards, we're going to introduce a negative sign. Times 0.0025. So that one I'm going to write it as 25 times 10 raised to the power something. How many times will I move this decimal point such that it will come behind the 5? So it is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 4 times. And because I'm moving backwards, I introduce my negative sign, right? Okay, now at this point, according to indices, when we have a raised to the power m times a raised to the power n, we said this could be written as a raised to the power m plus n, isn't it? Okay, so because of this rule, we can write this as 75 times 32 times 10 raised to the power minus 5 times 10 raised to the power minus 5 all over 16 times 25 times 10 raised to the power minus 5, then times 10 raised to the power minus 4. So applying the rule to this, we are going to add the exponents since my bases are the same. Looking at this, says if you have a raised to the power m times a raised to the power n should be equal to a raised to the power m plus n. So we're going to have 75 times 32. Well, we can even do some simplification from here. Okay, so looking at what we have written here, 25 can go into itself 1, and it can go into the 75 how many times? 25 can go into itself 1, can go into 75 3 times. Okay, so because of that, we're going to simplify this, the 75 to 3, and then the 25 will go into itself 1, then times 16 will go into itself 1, and then it will go into the 32 word 2 times, then times 10 raised to the power minus 5 times 10 raised to the power minus 5. So according to the rule of indices, that one is going to be written as 10 raised to the power minus 5 plus minus 5 will give us minus 10. Okay, and then here we're going to have times 10 raised to the power minus 5 times minus 4 will give us minus 9. Okay, minus 9. Let me write it here so that it will be clear. Minus 9. Right, so from this point, we can also recall that according to indices again, if we have a raised to the power m all over a raised to the power n this should be equal to a raised to the power m minus n. Okay, so because of that, we're going to simplify this. 2 times 3, we're going to have 6. Okay, and 6 times 10 raised to the power minus 10. Then 1 times 1 is going to give us 1 times 10 raised to the power minus 9 will be 10 raised to the power minus 9. So applying the rule of indices, we say that a raised to the power m all over a raised to the power n is equal to a raised to the power m minus n. We're going to have 6 times 10 raised to the power minus 10, then minus 9. Okay, minus, and this one is minus 9. So the negative 9, we have minus 10 minus negative 9. So the negative becomes what? Positive. We're going to have 6 times 10 raised to the power minus 10 plus 9. So we have 6 times 10 minus 10 plus 9 will give us minus 1. And this is in a simplified form. We cannot simplify further. The question says we should leave our answer in standard form. And looking at it, says times 10 raised to the power minus 1 is already in standard form. Hence we're done with the first one. So let us look at the next question. The next question says that, as we have read already, kindly purchase 2 chairs in a table at 7 Ghana cedis, subtracting the price of a chair from that of a table results 1 Ghana cedi. What is the cost of each chair and each table? So from this question, we are going to solve it by first doing some declaration. Let x represent the price of a chair, okay, and y represents the price of a table. Okay, so from the question, says that kindly purchase 2 chairs. So we're going to have 2, going to form some equations, right? Formulating the equations for the question, we're going to have 2x and then a chair, which is, 2 chairs. So it is going to be 2 by the x chairs, and a table, so it's going to be y, okay, equal to, and the cost is 7 Ghana cedis, so we have 7. And then the next equation, we said the subtracting the price of a chair from that of a table. So it means if the chair is x, we're going to subtract x from the table, which is y, and that gives us what? 1. So these are the equations that we can formulate from the question. So here we're going to let 2x plus y equal to 7 be our equation 1, okay, and then y minus x equal to 1 be our equation 2. So solving these 2 equations simultaneously to find the value of x and y. Solving the equations using elimination method. We are going to have, using the elimination method, we're going to have equation 1 minus equation 2. Okay, then equation 1 minus equation 2, we have 2x plus y equal to 7. Then let me rearrange the variables. Minus x plus y equal to 1. But it is actually the same, right? Okay, now here, since we're subtracting there equation 2 from equation 1, 2x minus negative x, we're going to have negative, that will give us positive, so we're going to have 3x. Okay, and then y minus y will give us 0. Okay, then 7 minus 1 will give us 6. So from this we can find the value of x. 3x equal to 6, and then we need to divide both sides by the coefficient of x, and then the 3 will go into itself 1, and 1 times x will give us what? X. Okay, then 3 will go into itself 1, and 2 will go into 6, 2. Right, so 2 over 1 is what? 2. That is basically the value for x. So therefore x is equal to 2. To find the value of y, we can put x equal to 2 into equation 2. So when we do that, equation 2 is y minus x equal to 1. But we said x is equal to 2, so we have in place of x minus 2 equal to 1. Y will be equal to 1. Then sending these two across the equality sign, it is minus, it changes to positive 2. Now y will be equal to 1 plus 2 is what? 3. So therefore the y is equal to 3. And you know, from our initial declaration, we said we should let x represent the price or the cost of a chair, and the y represent the price or the cost of a table. Then we had x to be 2. So therefore a chair cost 2 Ghana cedis, whilst a table costs 3 Ghana cedis. Right? Yeah. So we can conclude, therefore a chair costs 2 Ghana cedis, and a table costs 3 Ghana cedis. Okay, yeah. Now let us look at the last question. The last question, which is the perimeter of a triangle of side length 7 root 162 units, 5 root 192 units, and x units is giving us that. So from this question, what we got to understand is that That's question number 3. You know, a triangle has how many sides? 3 sides, right? So we can just use this one as the example. And the question is saying that the triangle has side length. So probably the base is 7 root 162, and this side is 5 root 192, and the other side is what? The x units, which is unknown, right? So the perimeter of an object means the summation of all the sides around the object. So to find the value of x according to the question, we have to sum all the sides, then we equate it to the perimeter given in the question, right? Which is 46 root 3 plus 63 root 2. Okay, so in doing so, we are going to have I'm going to start solving from here, right? This is question number 3. So this side, 7 root 162 plus 5 root 192 plus x should be equal to 46 root 3 plus 63 root 2 according to the question. But according to SERS, before we can add this, we need to make sure that before we can simplify them, we have to make sure that they are having the same number within the square root, and also we can simplify the numbers within the square root sign. Okay, yeah, so set is in its simplified form if the figure within the square root sign is prime. Okay, so we're going to look for the prime number that we can probably multiply by a certain perfect square to get 162, and the least prime number that we can really multiply by a certain perfect square to get 162 is 2 times 81. So 81 times 2 will give us 162. Then we have the next term. We're going to look for the least prime number that we can multiply by a certain perfect square to get 192, and that is going to be 3 by 64. Okay, then plus x equal to 46 root 3 plus 63 root 2. Right, then at this point, you know, this could be written as root 81 times root 2 plus 5 root 64 times root 3 plus x equal to 46 root 3 plus 63 root 2. And you know, because 81 is a perfect square, the perfect squares are obtained by multiplying a number by itself, right? So what number can you multiply by itself to get 81? That is 9, right? So we're going to have 7. The square root of 81 is what? 9. Then root 2. 2 is prime, so we cannot do anything to it. We're going to leave it like that. Then the 64 is also a perfect square. So what number can I multiply by itself to get 64, which is 8, right? So 8 times root 3 plus x is going to give us 46 root 3 plus 63 root 2. Okay, now we can multiply the 9 by 7 by 9 is going to give us 63 root 2, and then 5 by 8 is going to give us 40 root 3 plus x equal to 46 root 3 plus 63 root 2. Okay, right. Then now we can find the value of x by letting x standing alone. Since we have simplified ourselves, we could see that we have root 3 at the left hand side, and then here too within the square root we have a root 3 at the right hand side, we have a root 2 at the left hand side, here too we have a root 2. So we can send the cells at the left hand side to the right hand side such that the x will stand alone, and also we can simplify to get the value of x. Okay, so I'm going to have x is equal to, so let me write what is at the right hand side first. 46 root 3 plus 63 root 2. Then sending the 63 root 2 to the left hand side, because it is positive, when it crosses the equality sign it becomes negative 63 root 2. Okay, then the 40 root 3 at the left hand side, it is positive, when it crosses the equality sign it also becomes negative 40 root 3. Okay, then our x is going to be 46 root 3, and then see 63 root 2 minus 63 root 2 is going to give us what? 0. Then minus 40 root 3. Okay, note that we have said 63 root 2 minus 63 root 2 is 0, and 0 is insignificant. You can decide to write it or not. Now we have 46 root 3 minus 40 root 3. These are like terms. The number within the square root is 3. The number within the square root 2 is 3. So we can simplify. X will be equal to 46 minus 40, 10 root 3. Okay, and 46 minus 40 is going to give us 6, right? Then we bring our root 3. So therefore x is equal to 6 root 3 units. We're done figuring out this solution for the questions, right? And if you could solve them, I'm sure it's gonna do you good. See you when I see you. Bye.